Can young Vietnamese still afford to get married today? In Vietnam, a wedding is not just a declaration of love. It is a declaration to the world that two families are ready socially, financially, and emotionally to begin a new chapter. But behind the polished photos and overflowing banquet tables, there is a quieter conversation happening in apartments, cafes, and family living rooms across the country. Not where should we hold the wedding? But, can we afford it? Because in Vietnam, marriage often arrives as a package deal: tradition, community expectations, and an economy that has made adulthood, especially housing, more expensive than ever. The first bill arrives before the wedding day, the engagement gifts. Before a couple even reaches the wedding reception, many families follow engagement customs where the groom's side presents symbolic gifts to the bride's family. Among those gifts, gold jewelry carries special meaning. Gold is not only decorative. It is often viewed as durable wealth, something that can be kept, sold, or used in difficult times. Vietnam Airlines travel guide notes that gold jewelry in Vietnamese weddings is commonly given to provide lasting security and support the new couple through hardship. Exactly how much gold is given varies widely by region, family expectations, and financial capacity. But the principle is consistent: gold represents stability, and stability has a price. The banquet economy. Why Vietnamese weddings get so big? In many countries, weddings have shifted toward smaller, private ceremonies. In Vietnam, weddings often remain large-scale social events because they are not only personal milestones. They are also community gatherings where relationships are acknowledged, status is displayed, and obligations are renewed. That scale creates a predictable financial reality. The banquet is usually the biggest expense. How much does it cost to feed hundreds of guests? Prices vary dramatically by venue and city. Some hotel and wedding venue packages in Ho Chi Minh City list menu prices around VND 7.9 million per table of 10 guests at one major central hotel, before you even add upgrades. A 2024 wedding brochure from another major hotel shows table packages ranging roughly from VND 7.8 million up to VND 11.6 million for 10 guests, again before optional beverage add-ons. At those rates, scale becomes everything. A wedding with 30 tables, about 300 guests, can push catering alone into the hundreds of millions of dong, depending on the venue tier and add-ons. And here is the irony many couples mention afterward: they pay for a meal they barely taste because they spend the entire night greeting guests, taking photos, and moving from table to table. The envelope system. Weddings as a social ledger. Vietnamese weddings run on a parallel financial system. The red envelope cash gift. Cash gifts help couples offset costs, but they are not free money. They create a social obligation because today's gift often becomes tomorrow's repayment when another wedding invitation arrives. How much do people typically give? In late 2024, Vietnamese media reporting based on reader surveys found that many people chose wedding gifts in the range of VND 500,000 to VND 1 million, with another sizable group choosing VND 300,000 to VND 500,000, reflecting rising banquet costs and social pressure. VN Express has also described the common stress around whether VND 500,000 feels too little versus VND 1 million being too much, especially as wedding meals become more expensive. So yes, envelopes can partially return costs, but they also strengthen the core truth of Vietnamese wedding culture: a wedding is not only a celebration. It is part of a long-term social accounting system. Who pays? The family financing model and its strings. In many Vietnamese families, parents do not simply attend the wedding. They fund it. This support can make marriage possible for young couples, especially when wages have not kept pace with major life costs. But financial sponsorship often comes with expectations: who is invited, where the wedding is held, how formal it should be, which traditions must be followed, and sometimes, what comes next, especially grandchildren. That is why many Vietnamese couples say marriage is not purely the union of two individuals. It is a merging of two families' priorities, reputations, and financial decisions. The hard numbers, income, marriage timing, and why couples delay, now bring the wedding bill into the wider economy. Multiple reports tied to Vietnam's official statistics have placed average monthly incomes around VND 8.3 to 8.4 million in 2025, depending on the quarter and reporting period. That is roughly a few hundred US dollars per month, and it explains a simple reality: for many young people, a wedding can represent many months or years of savings. As costs rise, marriage timing shifts. Vietnam Net, citing the General Statistics Office, reported that in 2023 Vietnam recorded 688,000 marriages, and 83% of those couples were marrying for the first time. The same reporting noted that the mean age at marriage was approaching 30 for men and 25 for women, a sign of delayed marriage compared with earlier decades. This is not only about changing values. It is also about affordability, the hidden cost that can eclipse the wedding, housing after marriage. In Vietnam, the wedding is often only the opening expense, the larger, longer-term cost begins afterward. Housing, in many families, marriage, especially for men, quietly implies home ownership or at least a stable housing plan. That expectation is intensified in major cities, where prices have surged. A Reuters report in January 2026 stated that apartment prices in Vietnam rose sharply over the prior year, and cited industry data placing big city prices around VND 100 million per square meter, while noting that the average annual salary was around VND 100 million. That comparison is not a small detail, it is the affordability crisis in one sentence. Separate market reporting has also indicated that new apartments in Ho Chi Minh City have been priced in high ranges. For example, a report citing CBRE Vietnam said new apartments were around VND 80 to 120 million per square meter, with some projects reaching VND 150 million. Savills Vietnam has likewise described continued price growth and the shrinking share of affordable apartment transactions in Ho Chi Minh City. So when couples ask, "Can we afford to marry?" they often mean something larger. Can we afford the life that marriage is expected to require? The wider social impact, marriage, birth rates, and policy shifts. When marriage becomes financially heavy, it affects more than weddings. Vietnam has been confronting declining birth rates, especially in urban areas, and in 2025 the country formally ended its long-standing two-child policy. Major outlets reported that this shift was driven by falling fertility rates and demographic concerns about aging and future labor supply. This is part of the same story. When housing is expensive, wages are stretched, and weddings are costly, couples delay marriage and often delay or reduce childbearing too. A celebration, a negotiation, and an economic test. A Vietnamese wedding is many things at once. It is a celebration of love, it is a public performance of family honor, it is a community gathering, and, increasingly, it is an economic negotiation between tradition and modern life. For some couples, the costs are manageable, especially with family support. For others, the wedding becomes the first major financial burden of adulthood, and for a growing number of young Vietnamese, the most honest question is no longer, "How should we get married?" but, "Should we marry now or wait until we can afford it?" On-screen final line, in Vietnam today, love still matters, but the ledger matters, too.